Good afternoon. I'm reading from my book, The Everlasting Gospel of Jesus. It's available on Amazon, on Kindle Unlimited to read for free. And right now it's available in English, Spanish, and French. But it's soon to be available in Portuguese and Urdu for those in Pakistan. And I'd like to read from chapter 4, The Green Tree. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? Jesus shouted this question to the world in his moment of great despair. A country boy, Simon of Cyrene, was called to help Jesus to carry the cross that was too big, heavy, or bulky for Jesus to carry alone. They were taking Jesus to kill him. A large group of people followed Jesus, weeping because they knew where he was going and knew Jesus did not deserve to die. Everyone knew Jesus went about doing good things and healing all those who were oppressed by the devil. There were some who did not want to know, but everyone knew. Jesus told them not to weep for him, but to weep for themselves and their children. He said a time will come when it will be said, "Blessed are they who have no children." That's when he asked, if they do this in a green tree, what shall they do in the dry? The crowd must have been murmuring, "What did he say? What does that mean? What is the green tree? And what is the dry tree? Is there any context to provide the meaning of the question?" A dry tree has no leaves or fruit. It will never have leaves or fruit because it is dry. It is just a stick rising out of the ground. When you are looking for a sweet, juicy watermelon and you cut it open, and it has no flavor, it is green. It needed to stay on the vine a little longer to ripen, so it would not be green. You can pull a tomato off the vine if it is green. When you put a tomato in a blender with some peppers, onions, and other things, you expect to make a good hot sauce. If the tomato is green, it's not juicy and will not make good hot sauce. You can still eat it, but it does not have the desired flavor and consistency. The whole point of hot sauce is the flavor it gives the food. You expect the ingredients to be ripe and full of flavor, but if you use green tomatoes, it won't be. When I first began traveling to Mexico, I saw that the oranges growing on the trees were all green. Workers were picking the green oranges. My girlfriend asked me if I wanted some orange juice. I told her not to give me juice from those oranges because green oranges will not make good orange juice. She told me the juice from those green oranges were good. I was dubious, but she was right. Those green oranges in Mexico make good orange juice because those oranges are green in color, but they're not green in maturity. They were ripe. There were two types of green. There are two types of green. When Jesus was speaking of a green tree, he was not referring to the color green. He was speaking of a tree that is green because it's not ready yet. The tree could be ready later, but not now. If you let the green tree grow, it will likely produce good fruit in the future. In context, the question about the green tree and the dry tree followed some discussions Jesus had with his disciples and those who followed him during his last days. Jesus was sitting in Simon's house with all the disciples when a woman came and broke a very precious, expensive box. The woman broke this very precious box so everyone there could experience the seeping of the spikenard. A good experience was available for everyone present when she broke that box. Unfortunately, when she broke the box, many of them did not experience the spikenard that was precious, that was more precious than the box, because their attention was on the broken box rather than the richness of the spikenard. She broke the box so everyone could experience the spikenard. She poured it on Jesus' head for his burial. The breaking of the box and the spilling of the spikenard was sensual demonstration of the breaking of Jesus' body so that all his precious blood would be spilled. The following day, Jesus' whole body would be broken and his blood spilled out so everyone could experience the goodness and mercy of God. The disciples immediately complained that the box of spikenard could have been sold to give to the poor. They meant the experience was too costly for them because they did not deem themselves worthy of such a rare and expensive experience. They felt the experience that was free to them should be sold for money so they could share a lesser experience with others who were less privileged. They were watering down the everlasting gospel of Jesus into a social gospel that costs less and means less. Instead of receiving the gospel experience that was freely given to them, they wanted to sell the experience before they had it to accept a less potent experience. The disciples failed to understand that the potency of their experience was its lifeblood. Judas Iscariot was the source of this attempt to counterfeit the gospel. He was in the room because he was one of the apostles, but he wanted to sell the alabaster box of spikenard. He had personally complained days before about the waste of spikenard Mary poured on Jesus' feet at Lazarus' house. He wanted to sell the gospel. He wanted to sell Jesus. He wanted to sell our experience. Jesus knew who Judas was, and he knew that he would sell him to the Jewish leaders the very next day. The very next day, in their very next supper, while Judas ate with them, Jesus told his disciples, Judas will betray him. Judas was already working on it that night. When the disciples were on the road from Bethany, where Simon the leper lived, to Jerusalem, Jesus saw a fig tree from a great distance, but it was not time for figs. The tree was a green tree because it was not time to grow leaves and produce fruit. Jesus had walked a long way and he was hungry, so he cursed the fig tree and said, "Never will there be any fruit from this time." Throughout his ministry, Jesus never cursed anything else. Jesus was never a cursing man. It is not his nature to curse people or things. Jesus' nature is exemplified in his teaching about a man who had a vineyard with a fig tree planted in it. For 3 years the man sought fruit from the fig tree and found none. He told the dresser of the vineyard to cut it down so it would not cumber the ground. The dresser asked for 1 more year to dig around it and fertilize, and if it bore fruit, it would survive. But if it did not bear fruit, he would cut it down. The fig tree Jesus passed that day was the only thing Jesus ever cursed. Why would he curse a fig tree that could not have produced fruit because it was green.